I've seen more of North America than most people see in a lifetime. My parents hate flying, so we lived in our Subaru. From the vine-choked swamps of the Deep South to the red rocks of Sedona, the road was my playground. By 15, I had hit 42 states. We lived in Kansas, the dead center of everything, so every direction led to an adventure. I used to dream of being a truck driver. I wanted to be a rolling stone that gathered no moss. I wanted to be free, but be careful what you wish for. My travels took a dark turn 2 years ago at a small, unassuming rest stop in the Appalachian foothills. The first encounter. It was the dead of summer. The air was thick enough to chew, choked with gnats and the smell of damp pine. While my parents were stretching their legs, I wandered toward the edge of the woods. That's when I saw him. A boy, younger than me, with light brown curls and a pale, freckled face. He was wearing a vintage Jurassic Park t-shirt, a Velociraptor. It was my favorite movie. I waved and said, "Hi." He didn't speak. He just stared with eyes that looked 1,000 years old before vanishing behind a row of parked cars. I thought he was just a weird kid. I was wrong. The pattern emerges. A week later, we were back in Kansas. I was at a vending machine reaching for a Dr. Pepper when I felt the hair on my neck stand up. There he was again. Same boy, same raptor shirt, standing at the edge of a cornfield, staring into nothing. Before I could reach him, my mom called me back to the car. Then came Thanksgiving in Michigan. At a megatruck stop, I saw a missing persons poster. In the center was the boy, Mikey Wilkins, last seen in Phoenix, 2009. According to the poster, he should have been an adult by now. But the boy I saw hadn't aged a day. Into the waiting. 6 months later, in the Arizona desert, I finally caught him. I chased him through a maze of big rigs into a hidden campsite behind some boulders. I asked him if he was a ghost. "Not quite," he whispered. His voice sounded like grinding gravel. "You need to leave, Dash. It's not safe around me." Before I could ask why, the temperature plummeted. The desert heat vanished, replaced by an unnatural, biting chill. Then, a massive hand, encased in a thick, blood-red rubber glove, clamped over my face. It smelled like engine oil and rotting earth. The rules of the highway. When I woke up, I was in a Volvo. Mikey was in the driver's seat. I ran to find my parents, but the Subaru was gone. I saw police officers, but my hands passed right through them. I screamed, but they only talked about the missing boy, Dash Bowman. Mikey explained the truth. "We are in the waiting. In this place, you can only exist at rest stops. If you try to drive away or walk past the property line, a flash of light teleports you to a different rest stop somewhere else in the country. You can eat the food, you can drive the cars, but the people in the real world will never see you again. You don't age. You don't grow. You just wait." But we aren't alone. Mikey warned me about the Red Gumbies. Creatures in blood-red rubber suits that roam the waiting in a silent, black tanker truck. They are the only ones who can touch us. And when they take a kid, that kid never comes back. "I've been here since 2009, Mikey told me as we sat in a greasy spoon diner, eating food the staff didn't know we'd stolen. "I've watched dozens of kids get taken. I won't let them get us." The cartographer of the damned. We started with the West Coast. Every time we jumped, the word Mikey used for the flash of light that teleported us, I would immediately sprint to the nearest signpost. California, Oregon, Washington. I realized the waiting wasn't random. It was a grid. We began marking the rest stops with a small X, carved into the back of the vending machines. It was our way of saying we were here. But as the map grew, so did the feeling of being watched. I started noticing things I hadn't seen before. Strange symbols etched into the asphalt, only visible under a full moon. Mikey wouldn't talk about them. He just kept walking, his eyes constantly darting toward the horizon, looking for that black silhouette of a tanker truck. It happened at a desolate stop in Nevada. I was alone in the tiled silence of the men's room, splashing cold water on my face. Suddenly, the hand dryers all kicked on at once. The roar was deafening. I looked in the mirror, and for a split second, I didn't see my reflection. I saw a man, older, bearded, wearing a trucker's cap, standing right behind me. He looked terrified. He reached out, his hand shimmering like heat haze, and whispered a single word, "Exit 14. Then he vanished. When I told Mikey, he turned white. He told me that sometimes, the long-timers try to communicate from deeper levels of the waiting, but their voices are usually swallowed by the static of the road. The air didn't just get cold. It turned brittle. We were at a lush green stop in Vermont when the birds stopped chirping. A low, rhythmic thrumming began to vibrate in my chest. Out of the fog emerged the black tanker. It had no chrome, no logos, just a matte black finish that seemed to soak up the sunlight. It didn't make an engine noise. It sounded like thousands of whispering voices. The driver's side door creaked open, and a Red Gumby stepped out. Its rubber suit was wet, glistening with something thicker than oil. We didn't wait to see its face. We jumped into a parked Mustang and floored it, praying the flash would take us before the rubber fingers reached the door handle. The jump landed us in a place that shouldn't exist. It was a rest stop, but there were no people. No real-world travelers. Just hundreds of cars from every era. Model TS, 70s muscle cars, modern EVs, all rusted and piled high in a circle around the facility. Mikey called it the impound. This is where the vehicles go when their drivers are taken by the Gumbies. I found a diary in the glove box of a 1994 station wagon. The last entry was dated yesterday, even though the car looked 40 years old. The entry read, "They don't want our bodies. They want our momentum." At a megastop in Ohio, we met someone else. A girl named Sarah. She was sitting in a booth, eating a plate of pancakes that never got cold. She'd been there since the 80s, wearing neon leg warmers and a frayed denim jacket. She told us she stopped mapping years ago. "The map changes," she warned. "The roads shift. The waiting is a living thing, and it's hungry." She showed us a scar on her ankle, a perfect, circular burn mark. "One of them touched me," she whispered. "Now I can't jump anymore. I'm stuck at this specific stop. Forever." Remembering the man in the mirror, I became obsessed with finding exit 14. We jumped dozens of times, burning through cars and motorcycles. Finally, we landed at a small, unmanned stop in Nebraska. The sign was rusted, but you could clearly see it. Exit 14, no services. There was nothing there but a single ancient payphone and a storm cellar. Mikey begged me not to go down, but I had to know. Inside the cellar, there wasn't a basement. There was a control room filled with flickering monitors showing every rest stop we'd ever visited. And in the center of the room sat a Red Gumby, but it wasn't moving. It was empty, just a hollow suit waiting for a host. I realized the horrible truth. The Red Gumbies weren't monsters from another world. They were what happened to the kids who stayed in the waiting too long. When your soul finally gives up, the waiting dresses you. You become a guardian of the highway, a silent collector of others to keep the cycle going. I saw a name tag on the empty suit in the control room. Michael W. Mikey saw it too. He realized his fate was already sitting in this room, waiting for him to stop running. The realization triggered a massive jump, the most violent one yet. The jump didn't take us to a rest stop. It took us to the in-between. We were standing on a highway of pure white light, surrounded by a roaring storm of television static. Thousands of people were here, all walking in different directions, looking for their families. I saw my parents. They were at a rest stop in the real world, crying over a missing flyer. I reached out to touch my mother's shoulder, but my hand felt like it was being burned by acid. To return to the real world, someone has to take your place. That's the law of the waiting. One soul in, one soul out. The black tanker caught up to us in the static. 3 Red Gumbies stepped out, moving with terrifying, jerky movements. They weren't going for me. They were going for Mikey. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a strange peace. "You have a life to go back to, dash." My life ended in 2009. Before I could stop him, Mikey ran toward the Gumbies. He didn't fight them, he hugged them. The moment he touched them, the white light blinded me. I felt the sensation of falling, the smell of asphalt and Dr. Pepper, and the sound of my mother's voice calling my name. Part 11. The road goes on. I woke up on the pavement of the Arizona rest stop. My dad was shaking me, his face pale with terror. "Dash, you passed out. You were gone for 10 minutes. I looked around. The sun was hot. The gnats were biting. I was back. But as we pulled the Subaru back onto the highway, I looked out the rear window. There, standing at the edge of the desert, was a boy in a Velociraptor t-shirt. He wasn't running anymore. He just raised a hand and waved goodbye. I reached into my pocket and felt a piece of paper. The back of my missing persons poster. It was blank now, except for one word written in Mikey's handwriting. Run.